Okay, should we go? We are back with another episode of The Closing Table with Lead House 365. I'm Drew, and this is Craig. Say what up, Craig.
What's up?
And we are here with a special guest today, Sam, who is a real estate investor based in St. Louis. And we're super stoked to have him on because he's going to talk to us a little bit about the commercial side and commercial versus residential and what goes into that. And just super excited to have you on, man.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to be here, man.
Sweet.
I've known Craig for a good while, so trying to connect, do whatever we can.
Hell yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, brother. How'd you get involved in real estate?
Oh, man, that's a crazy story in its own. Yeah, so if I go back a few years, back in like 2019, around that time, I was finishing college. Well, I finished college and I ended up getting a job. I was working as an electrical engineer for a little bit, 3 months, tried to start a business out in California, like a whole restaurant setup in Santa Barbara. That failed miserably within like 4 months of trying to get it going. And then I was just sitting around trying to figure out how to get into, some sort of business. And I come across this like real estate ad on Instagram or whatever. And I end up going to the seminar, and it was like a free seminar at first. And it was kind of like, a magnet to get you in there. And then they, upcharge you and whatnot. So I ended up going, bro. And mind you, at this time, I didn't know anything about like real estate, didn't know a lick. I didn't even know what a mortgage was. And I go to the seminar and I started, whatever, just dive in. It was like 3 days of like 8 hours a day. And I just do this whole thing. And then like on the third day, they're like, okay, this is the upsell part, right? Where they're like, hey, we have this, course set up where people will come back out in a few weeks and they'll teach you and help you get a deal done. I was like, whatever, let's do it. And I'm like, what do I got to do? And it's like, well, you sign up and like KP, And I'm like, dude, I got maybe like $1,000 in my bank account. And they, it's crazy because they had like this credit card person there. And I was like, whatever, I'll sign up for some credit cards. So I ended up getting like 5 credit cards, putting it all on those credit cards. And I end up jumping in. And what's the crazy part here is like those few weeks later, so they give you like this whole course thing. And it was like, yeah, study this while, in the meantime. And then when we come out, you'll have a better understanding of what's got to be done. So I was like, whatever, I jump on and I'm doing all this online, like, these videos, these courses and stuff. And mind you, these are like courses from like the 1990s type of thing, bro. Like
dated.
Early 2000s. And, super dated, bro. Like people are talking about like, yeah, go put up bandit signs, stuff like that. And which I did that too, bro. And, a couple weeks passed. I'm like, hold on, we're supposed to like, this was in like September, October of 2019. And by like, they were supposed to come back out at the end of October, to be like, hey, we're going to show you how to walk a house, how to get rehab costs, how to put a deal under contract, everything like that. Bro, these people never showed up. Right. And I got lucky because one guy that I did meet there, I just kind of stayed in touch with him. And he tells me like, it's like December time. No, actually, it was like the end of November. And I'm like, damn, I just lost fucking 20K, like, well, granted, it was on credit card, so I didn't lose it myself, but whatever. And he's like, bro, there's like a whole FTC like scheme thing like that, that they're doing against those people that came out. And he's like, if you go apply, if you fill out your info and apply, they might give you some of that money back. Man, I was like, man, I don't even know if I'll get it back, whatever. And I just apply and I ended up getting like 5K back. And it was like a 6-month, 12-month timeline type of thing.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, bro, I was like, well, I'm like, I got all this credit card debt now from this real estate situation, this seminar, which ended up being like a scheme. But honestly, I'm like still super grateful for like that whole experience. Just going there and just really opened up my world and my mind to like something that I never even knew about, right? And I just jumped in, bro. I ended up opening up like a LLC in like the end of December of 2019. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out one way or another. So I just started like studying like YouTube, Brent Daniels, what's his name, Gary Norton, those guys. And then there's a local guy in St. Louis. His name's David Dodge. Shout out to him too. He's super cool, dude. I just started learning from his free stuff, bro. They were like, here's the free stuff. And I was like, man, I just paid like 20 grand for all of this. And it was like all free, you know? So it was crazy. And I ended up jumping in, bro. And then I ended up getting my first deal like 6-7 months down the line, which was a crazy time too, because I ended up going from that, you know, at the end of 2019. And then like, you know, I'm over here cold calling. I was putting up bandit signs, mailing. I would send out like $2,000 of mail, right? And it was like 12 vacant houses. So all that shit bounced back. And it was crazy. It was crazy. And then it ended up like, you know, COVID starts to happen, right? Like in February. So like 3-4 months down the line, COVID happens. And everybody's like in the real estate space. Like I was following some of these guys. There's a big guy out of Florida. I forgot his name. He's kind of doing other stuff. I think his name is Rafael Vargas. I don't know if you guys know about him or whatever. But at the time, he was like super crazy into wholesaling, like doing it like in different multiple markets or whatever. So I was watching his stuff too. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm switching out of real estate. You know, COVID's happening. I'm getting into like some Forex or some shit like that. And I was just like, dude, I don't even know what's going to happen, right? Like, I was like, man, this is done. You know, like everything I was just like going for, I was like, man, this is already like, you know, it's going to be super difficult because I've seen all these big names and they're like, oh, yeah, this isn't going to work with COVID. You know, you can't even go to a house. And at that time, I was like, man, do I keep doing this or do I switch into something else? And granted, I still had like all that credit card debt. I still had bills, whatever. I wasn't making any money because I went full time into it right off the bat, which I don't recommend for people to do. You know, like nowadays I don't do that. And ended up just doubling down. I was like, man, I'm gonna just keep cold calling. I'm gonna just keep doing what I got to do. And you know, in January, I talked to a seller that was like not too far from where I lived at the time, and you know, he's like, I'm not ready now. He lived out in Colorado. He's like, I'm not ready now. Like my brother just passed away or something like that. And he's like, the house was vacant. And he's like, I'll be ready in a few months, dude. And I didn't even know about like follow-up process, nothing like that. So dude, just randomly, like, I don't know, by the grace of God, bro, like in June, he just calls me and he's like, hey, yeah, this is, I forget his name. I forget his name, whatever, not a big deal. He's like, yeah, this is me. And he's like, I want to sell my house. Are you still looking to buy it? And I'm just like, wait, hold on. I was like, yeah, for sure. Didn't even know how to send a contract, nothing. Just put it all together right away. End up in like 2 weeks making like a $20K fee. And I was like, man, this is insane. And after that, just kept going at it, you know. Ever since then, like July of 2020 to now, really, I've at least closed at least one deal a month. You know, that's kind of always been my thing. So that's kind of the story of how I got into it, and a little different, but you know, it happens.
Hell yeah, that's crazy, man.
Getting scammed by the mastermind people is that's nuts, and I'm glad it didn't deter you from continuing the journey. It's like that's awesome, and it goes to show that how much knowledge can be on the YouTube Academy. That you may, before you pay anyone for that knowledge, make sure it's not on YouTube, because a lot of things you can learn how to do by yourself. Think about how many years these video platforms have been out and how many people have been just giving value that if you're willing to sit down and just like really like hit the books, like you may be able to find everything you need.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, man. And like, you know, I was just like a young, stubborn guy out of like school, you know, just trying to jump into business, whatever. I was like, let me see what I can figure out, you know, because I just didn't want to work a 9 to 5, like right off the bat. I was like maybe 21 at the time. And, you know, at that age, I feel like you know so much, but you literally don't know anything. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I was just, I mean, like, I always like to put myself in these situations, like, not specifically like that, but where it's like when I get comfortable at something, right? I like to put myself in a situation where like I kind of have to force my brain or my mind to think like differently, or into like, okay, how do I get out of this, or how do I figure this part out, right? Compared to just like, I don't know, I'm not too big on like just being comfortable in the same scenario or getting complacent. So that's kind of what I've done over the years too. Like just like we were talking about a little bit, you know, you mentioned the commercial real estate side of things. Like always seen that, and I was like, man, I wonder how people do that, right? You know, and like this and that. So I was like, whatever, let me just start marketing a couple of these people, right? And at the time we were just strictly doing single family, and I always thought, I was like, man, I need money. I need like 500K saved up at least to get it to commercial. Those are just kind of limiting beliefs, right?
Mhm.
And we just started marketing, bro. I ended up getting a 6 unit, deal under contract with the seller that, he had a stroke, and he's like, man, I just want to retire. It was beat down. I'm not even gonna lie. It was like super bad condition and whatnot. But this was about 3 hours or 2 hours away from me in Columbia, Missouri. 6 unit deal. I ended up making 50K like first
Dang.
rip, like on a commercial deal. And I was like, man, that's crazy,
That's
So you just,
crazy.
I think those limiting beliefs, bro, we just put up on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, it's like we've noticed as well as because making that transition from just single family and then moving into commercial. Commercial goes so far. It's literally any type of property that's not being lived in is considered commercial, right? So we've noticed that as well. That it's like, hey, in the deals, the sellers are more serious. They're less likely to go behind your back. The spread on the deals are 3, 4, 5 times as much a single family, and there's not title issues as much. And it just seems like that person, it's kind of like doing business to business, right? B2B, because that person
Yeah.
is or was an investor at one time. So they have a higher ethics than a normal seller that may be going through some crazy shit where, they're just looking for money and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and kind of talking about that, where you said it's like another investor, business to business, which it really is. You're talking to somebody who understands real estate investing. And like you could do it a little bit in single family when you come across somebody who owns like a portfolio or something like that, or like a group of rental properties. But like in the commercial real estate space, it's like you're talking to people who understand numbers. It's like
Mhm.
I'm asking somebody, it's like, hey, what's the NOI? What's your rents? Whatever, and we agree at an asking price and whatnot. And then it's like you ask them, it's like, well, hey, look, you do your due diligence period, and then it comes down to it, and it's like, well, it looks like the numbers aren't really where the numbers, that you mentioned after our due diligence. We
Mhm.
need to be 50K lower based off of this because the cap rate's at 4% and we need it at 8% or whatever,
Mhm.
just as an example. Those people are much more understanding when you ask for that price reduction based on those numbers compared to somebody that's like on a
Yeah.
single family and you're like, hey, I need 10K off or 50K off, whatever, because, we got to change the whole roof, the furnace and whatnot,
Yeah.
It's like a whole
Also,
different ball game when you talk to these
yeah.
people.
Seems like it's like less emotion tied to it as well. With the single family people, it's like this is the house they raised their kids in potentially, or the house they were raised in. So there's like an emotional of not really wanting to let it go, where it's like they may have to, right? But they may not want to. And with the commercial side, it's usually like they want to and or have to. Like it's usually both, for the most part. And then it also seems like with the commercial side, there's less competition for people to come. Like if you get that lead, there's that lead is chances are not going to be in 10 other wholesalers CRM, or you may have less competition with the timeline that we have. So many times we talk to guys who they get it under contract, and then they start talking to 3 other people and get it under contract 3 other people, and they pull out, where it's like that's less likely to happen, it seems like, with the commercial side as well.
Yeah, I think in the commercial side, that's definitely a thing, where you don't get a lot of people that are like, wholesalers, marketing to them. So they're not getting in front of these people. But one thing I do notice is like, sometimes there's like a little pushback between, all right, if you're coming off as like, hey, I'm just this real estate investor, compared to like, whenever there's like a motivated seller in the commercial space, so, they're considering, commercial real estate brokers, right? Some sort of agents and stuff. They're like, well, they've been in this business for these, whatever, 10, 5, 50 years, who knows? So they've built these connections with certain agents, brokers in the commercial real estate space or whatnot. And they'll sometimes consider, working with them or and stuff like that. So I think how you kind of set yourself apart in that space is just like finding a way to provide value with them working with you as a direct, buyer in a way, or in times we've done it where it's like, hey, this deal doesn't specifically work for us, but we work with so many nationwide investors that look for specific deals like this. We'd be happy to connect this deal with them, and they'll do it because compared to like maybe the broker that they know that's local, they'll just be like, oh yeah, this person's going to list it, and they're listing it at like a 5 cap, right? And nobody's buying nowadays at 5-6% cap rates unless it's like some crazy tax advantage or some new build type of setup, or stuff like that. So there's just a little pushback on that side of things, but I think if you find a way to set yourself apart, you could definitely get some good traction with these commercial sellers.
Yeah, we find that we've been doing some lead gen just through our own testing for commercial, and we find that like there's just more there's may seem like there's far and few between, but when we go like nationwide and we start looking advertising for commercial properties, there's much less marketing competition as far as like the advertising space. If we're trying to get single family homeowners to submit a lead versus a commercial person, the cost is about the same, right? But you got to imagine how many whole like single family people in distress trying to sell their home are retail people versus commercial. The volume you'd think would not be the same, but it is about the same because there's so less competition. So your cost to advertise to those people is cheaper because it's all based off supply and demand. How many advertisers are targeting commercial real estate people? Not as many. So you get there's way more supply than demand to market to them. So we find that it's almost like you can get the same results. However, the commercial side, you're dealing with less competition as far as the other people going after those properties. And then like you said, you're dealing with someone who's maybe a little bit more professional, less emotional, and the spreads can be a lot higher. So it can be a great advantage to you. And I think just like you talked about in the beginning, a lot of people who are doing the residential side just have probably self-limiting beliefs that they can't get into commercial because they don't understand what the differences are, or they just believe that like, oh, there's not going to be as many opportunities.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Like I was mentioning earlier, those limiting beliefs can be crazy because like, just that first commercial deal we did, I mean, it was a 6 unit, so it was like, sure, it's a small commercial deal, it's anything over whatever 5 units is considered commercial. But I think, at that time I was like, man, I don't even know how to talk to these people about this stuff. And, what if you asked me a particular question or something along those lines? Have you ever done a commercial deal or whatever? Well, bro, it was just a regular seller that was motivated in a situation. He had a health problem. He had real estate, whatnot. Met him in person and we were just, chopping it up, talking back and forth about the situation he was in, the property, right? And how much, basically you're just understanding rents, and which most people, even as a wholesaler, you should be educated on like, hey, what's a property can rent for per unit, per single family, whatever, bedrooms, blah, blah, blah. And, just going through that process. And he was like, hey, I'm looking for 300K. And I'm like, bro, based off these rents and this condition, this property is probably worth, 500K. And it needs like a good 150 in rehab, which is, for a 6 unit, it needed a full rehab. And I was like, I got to be at 230. And he's like, oh, I got this guy giving me 250, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm like, why don't you go talk to him and see how fast he could close and whatnot. And he calls me back. Literally, I'm driving back from Columbia, Missouri. And he's like, hey, I'll take that 230, send over the agreement. I was like, I'll be back at my office here shortly. I sent it to him, and literally within the same day, shout out to David Dodge again, because he hooked me up with a guy that he knew out in Columbia, Missouri. He's like, yeah, this guy owns a waterproofing company, or yeah. And he's like, shoot him a message. He's been looking for apartment buildings in that area. Literally that same day, I hit him up. He's like, I'll drive by. Drives by, and he takes it at I think he took it at 280. Yeah, it was at 280.
Nice.
And it was just crazy, bro. Like, that just kind of like switched my whole mindset, going from like, hey, making 10 to 20K. Like you said, those spreads could be crazy, like between single family to commercial. And it was much quicker, much smoother, just conversation and the whole process, right? Compared to like with single family, bro. Like I was just telling you guys before we jumped on this call, we just did one yesterday. I mean, we still do single family, not just commercial, but we just did one. Man, yeah, title issues. Water pipes burst literally like 2 days before closing. Just a whole bunch of stuff. Sellers are going through divorce. You got all these different case scenarios, and you're almost like a freaking what's it called, like a therapist in a way.
Oh, yeah. We talk about that all the time. It's like a lot of times in this business, especially if you're doing residential, you're a therapist first and a real estate investor second for these people.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I don't mind it, bro. I like, that's kind of one thing I learned over the years is I really just enjoy helping people too, you know. So that's kind of why we still stick to the residential side of things, just because I like those situations and kind of you're almost like problem solving all the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, in the commercial space, bro, it's just completely different. And if you just kind of cut yourself off from those limiting beliefs and be like, hey, I'm gonna just do this and kind of figure it out step by step, you definitely have some crazy momentum you can build and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
leverage there. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like you have to hold the you personally as like the intermediary in a wholesale residential wholesale deal. You have to like play so many parts, right? Like
Yeah.
holding the deal together on the seller side, on your side, on the buyer side, and then who knows the lender side, the titles. Like you're just like literally stretched so thin. My experience on commercial is it's just a lot cleaner. It's just a lot cleaner. But it is there, you know, you have to understand like the deals take longer to close too, you know,
Yeah.
the funding, the trying to do a dispo, you know, they tend to take like, you know, 2 to 3 times longer, depending on what type the property is. But yeah, man, that's awesome. So tell us about the craziest deal you ever did.
Yeah, bro. So we could jump into that too. This was a 48 unit. So it was at first it was a 52 unit, and then it ended up being a 48 unit. So the story behind that was so we get this seller, he was out in Kansas City, Missouri, and he has like these two apartment buildings, right? And he's like in a partnership goes sour, and they just want to get out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at first we try to purchase both of them, but he's like, no, we couldn't agree on a price, blah blah blah. And he's like, how about I just sell you this 52 unit? And I was like, okay, great. You know, what price do you got to be at? And then we talk a little bit about the numbers, figure it out, and then we agree on, man, I can't even remember the numbers to tell you the truth. It was like 4.7 million or something like that. And this was like 3 years ago. And we ended up getting it under contract, whatnot. And I had a buyer specifically for that. And you know, just to find buyers, like I was mentioning earlier, bro, it's like I just tap into my network. You know, like I connect with mentors that have coached me, just these people that have been in the game for so long, and like maybe they don't buy themselves, but they know so many people that they're like that they're willing to connect me with them. You know, they're like, oh yeah, I know this guy, he buys in that area. You know, here's his number, blah blah blah. Just kind of do that, find this dude's information, and I hit him up. He goes out same day, basically, drives by the property, and he's like, yeah, I'm interested. Can you send me the financials, all of that? And that's another thing, like in commercial real estate space, is like you want to understand what like a T12 is, a profit and loss statement, how to read these, you know. And
Mhm.
mind you, like I said, we were talking about YouTube earlier, bro. I remember the first time somebody sent me a T12 and a profit and loss. I'm like, what even is this? Just jump
Mhm.
on YouTube. Hey, how do I look at a profit and loss statement, a T12? And you know, there's plenty full of videos. So
Mhm.
I just go through that, learn that kind of stuff, and I ended up sending this information over to him, and he takes a look at it. We go under contract, and we go under contract at like 5.05, 5.1 million. The spread was supposed to be 375,000, right?
Wow.
And this is the kind of crazy part. We we go under contract. The due diligence period was like 30 days and 45-day close, right? And this was a deal that was at the end of December, supposed to close beginning of January, right?
Mhm.
And we go under contract, and we're doing that. He does his due diligence. He's like, perfect, bro, I'm good to go. You know, he had his finances in place and everything like that. We're going through this process, and in the meantime, we're still trying to negotiate with the seller on the other 40 on the 48 units, and we end up the 52 unit. We're supposed to close 3 days out of closing, bro. This building catches on fire.
Holy shit.
Literally, like whole half of the building just fucking burnt to a crisp. Buyers calling me. He's like, dude, what are we gonna do now? I'm not buying this. You know, this isn't the same building. You know, and I'm like, man, I don't even know, bro. So I'm like, you know, trying to negotiate with the seller. I'm like, hey, bro, are you talking to your insurance? Can we still get this done? Or are they gonna pay you out? This and that. And like we kind of delay the process. We're like, hey, how about we push closing back another 30 days? And that buyer is just like, bro, I don't want it. He's like, I'm not dealing with the fire damage. He's like, that's just way too much risk. You know, I don't know if people are going to sue me that were like, you know, renting the place and whatnot, the tenants. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, I completely understand. And then at that time, I was like, man, maybe I could get a crazy price reduction, you know, because it caught on fire, you know, because he's about to get this crazy insurance check. And like, we're all just kind of negotiating, bro. At that time, I'm on like email threads with like the seller, his insurance, all of this stuff. And we get to a point where the seller's like, man, you know, I don't think my insurance is being fair with me. I think we're just going to have to step away from this deal. And I was like, yeah, that's no problem, man. I completely understand. And we step away from that deal. And then, like, you know, kind of in that same time period, just like a day or two after that, we like, hey, man, you know, that deal didn't work out. How about we do this 48 unit deal? You know, can we make something shake there? And he's like, yeah, no problem. You know, let's talk about it. And at that time, I just hit that same buyer up that was under contract on the 52 units. I'm like, bro, I got these 48 units over here. You know, are you interested? We can work on it together. And I already had the financials, right, from earlier trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the seller sent us all that. So I just sent it over to the buyer. I'm like, take a look, let me know what number you got to be at. And he's like, oh, I got to be at 4.45 million. And I was like, okay, no problem. And I go back to the seller, and I the seller down to like, it was like 4.175 or something like that. And ends up being like 175K spread, right? And that deal went smooth, man. I was like, hey, we're under contract. The buyer already had his financing ready for the 52 units. So he just had to change up some paperwork. So he's like, yeah, bro, I can close this within 20 days, no problem.
Damn.
And that was probably the craziest deal I've done. It was a 175K fee. Definitely changed my entire life after that kind of experience, you know, and just like dealing with certain people and making that kind of money in like one lump sum and within 20 days. But it was just like at the same time, bro, like just not giving up. Like, man, I remember whenever that building caught on fire, bro, I just started laughing. I swear to God, I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know, and like just the other day, like I'm talking to my acquisition manager, bro, and he's like working the deal where these water pipes burst, and he's like all pissed off, and he's like, man, I worked hard on this. I'm like, bro, there's so many things in real estate that you don't have control over. It's like if you can't laugh at yourself and just like find a way to be like solution orientated, you know, then you just really cut yourself short, you know, on what you can achieve and the thing and the kind of deals you put together. So yeah, that was a crazy experience.
Did you guys get a price reduction on the deal you closed yesterday with the water leak?
Dude, it was hella funny, bro. This seller, he's like, bro, like I said, they're going through like a divorce, bro. This seller, he's like smoking pot, like drinking at the crib, you know, trying to fix these water pipes.
Yeah.
It was funny, man. And you know, we're trying to like talk to him, and I'm like, bro, if you go through insurance, we'll pay the deductible, right? So you guys don't have to pay the deductible. Insurance is gonna cover it. Just because we were trying to like figure out a way, because whenever the water pipes burst, like the seller turned off his gas, right, for some reason, you know, like couldn't pay his gas bill. And we didn't even know about this, bro. And I was like, dude, if you just told me that, I would have paid the freaking gas bill. And he turned off the gas, and then it got down to like 10 degrees one night in St. Louis. And like the next day, there's just like crazy water leaking. Like we had a sewer guy go out to check the sewer, opens the door, bro. Like it's like a freaking waterfall in the basement. And yeah, it was crazy. So I was like, bro, you know, like, what if we go through insurance? You know, we'll help you guys throughout this process, because there's like so many things you can't see with the naked eye. You know, like somebody who doesn't even know, like, you know, how to put a pipe together, whatever. And they didn't want to do that, man. And for some reason, he was like, oh, this is gonna take so much longer, water, blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, if we literally just did the insurance process, we could have had this done within like a week, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm gonna fix it myself. My brother's a plumber, blah blah blah. I was like, all right, man, you do it, whatever, you know. And they didn't want to do the like we didn't go for a price reduction just because they like really like the house was in poor condition, and like our numbers were already like pretty tight at the end of the day, where you know, we were still making like 20K, and we just kind of kept the buyer on board. We were like, hey, you know, the seller's gonna work this out. He's gonna fix it back to how it was supposed to be and whatnot. They ended up doing it. We ended up delaying closing like 3 weeks, and we still ended up getting it done. So just crazy experiences lately, but definitely a lot of learning lessons if I could say so myself.
No doubt. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So if everyone's watching, it's stay in the game. No matter what happens, there's always going to be issues that you can't control. and you don't want to deter that from you. You know, get into the bag and living your dreams.
Yeah, for sure, man. You like I say, if you just cut off your limiting beliefs and like you kind of get very specific on what you're trying to do and the things you're trying to achieve, I think it's definitely possible, man. Like I said, I was a person who went from not even knowing what a mortgage was a few years back and just, working on commercial deals, single family, building out a team. And still to this day, man, I make so many mistakes. It's freaking unimaginable when I look at myself, right? But what can you do, bro? Everybody has kind of different life experiences and the ways they learn things. And I think if you just stick with it, stay consistent and persistent, I think that's the key.
No doubt. I like that. I like that mindset. So tell us about your team. So how big's your team, and yeah, let us know a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we don't have a big team at all. I've always tried to keep it small, just keep it lean. That's kind of one thing I learned early on from people I was just studying from and whatnot, and just like like things I learned from Brent Daniels. Just trying to keep as much of that net profit as much as possible. And right now I have two acquisition managers, a dispo manager, and one VA who does some of our follow ups and just admin task stuff. And then I'm still working the dispo side. I just enjoy talking to the investors, the business to business kind of aspect of it, right? And just making those connections. But yeah, so I got two acquisition managers. I had one, and then we ended up getting another one on back in November, which that was kind of a whole kind of a specific type of setup where I wanted to get very niche and specific on the things that we were doing and the sellers we were approaching in the single family space. And we just wanted to get better at learning foreclosures and probate, and because for a long time, I mean, we still do it a little bit, but we were just kind of blasting, like where it was like, yeah, pull 50K leads, or prospects, cold call all of them, and then whatever hits, we'll close on it, type of thing. And I think we kind of switched around everything, took like kind of reduced our marketing budget there, because now you don't have to pull all this data, you don't have to pay all these cold callers and everything, and we just got very specific to what we were doing with the foreclosures and the probates, because every single day now, especially in the economy we're in right now, it's pretty crazy, but there's foreclosure leads coming out like crazy, you know. And I realized it's like, hey, bro, if there's like 5 that come out each day, what I'm seeing on average, just kind of based off our numbers, there's usually 40 to 60 that come out every week, you know? And I was like, if we could just get to one a week, one contract a week on a foreclosure, we could definitely, be making 100K a month, no problem, right? And that's kind of where I ended up hiring a new acquisition manager back in November. And instead of him like going through all this crazy training and stuff, I just got him on board with one of my guys that's been coaching me, Michael Frankie. He's out of Kansas City. He's with the Niche, so shout out to him too. And he's all about foreclosures, bro, all about probates, stuff like that. And he showed us how to tap into that space, and we ended up going locking up a deal within like 30 days. Right, it was a 15K foreclosure deal. But then, like, after that, there was like a snowball effect. It's like we started setting more appointments. We started, putting more properties under contract and whatnot. And now it's like, we're really getting close to that one a week. We're probably doing about 2 a month. Right now, we have 3 under contract. They're all foreclosures from that specific marketing strategy. And then I still have the other acquisition guy that I've been working with for a long time. And he's just super into our pipeline. And then like he's doing some nationwide stuff, and that's kind of one thing me and you talked about recently. It's like, working with you guys to set up these marketing campaigns in a few of these markets that we're working in nationwide. So kind of a little, spread across, but, trying to keep it specific with what each person in the business is really doing and the things they focus on, compared to like everybody just doing a bunch of things that are the same in a way, which I did before too. And I think that was just, a learning process.
Definitely, man. So you mentioned that 48 unit was that the biggest deal you did, or have you done anything? Well, I should say bigger fee. Is that the biggest fee you guys ever closed on?
Yeah, that was the biggest fee, the 175 that I did. And then I did another one that was like 350, but that was split between three people at the time. So I
JV.
mean, yeah, it was a JV deal. Uh, but at that time, it's just even the JV deals, bro. I mean, that's still a crazy deal when you think about it. I was just connecting with people that are in the space, say commercial, whatever. And
Yeah.
then there's these people that bring up units and different commercial properties, and like even the deal me and you are doing, for example, like I'm sure I told you at one point, I was like, yeah, bro, I'm doing some commercial stuff and you got this deal in St. Louis. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's work on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely staying connected with the people in your space is super important because if they may know somebody that could take it home for you, or they may know somebody that knows somebody. So it's definitely something that everyone should do. Tap into your network on a daily, weekly basis just to see what's cooking. You could find something in there, and it could be 100% margin because someone could bring you the deal where you get it closed.
Yeah, 100%, man. And that's like one thing that's changed my entire life too. It's like over these last few years is just like, bro, like building relationships with people is like invaluable. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's any time in my life where I was like struggling, or like I had a time where I was like I didn't know what to do, or I felt like I was like, oh, I just got to focus on myself or whatever. It was always like a difficult timeline. And then whenever I find somebody or connect with somebody, and any given moment, that's always changed my life. That one relationship has always like, kind of gave me like an edge or like a different way of thinking or something along those lines. And whatever like case scenario, if you're doing real estate, if you're, trying to figure out your health life and fitness or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like anything you do, it's just all about kind of like connecting with certain individuals that are in that space and that are probably know more than you. You know what I'm saying? And if somebody doesn't know as much as you, or like you see somebody that's getting started or needs some assistance and help, I think like being that person where it's like, hey, providing some value to those people instead of looking down upon them and being like, oh yeah, these people are, they haven't even started, or they haven't done a deal, or they've only done a couple deals, right? I've never looked at it that way, and I always just try to, provide value, either if it's somebody getting started or if it's somebody that's even ahead of me that knows, that's doing crazy commercial deals or crazy residential, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's good, man. Kind of paying it forward.
Yeah, 100%, man. Just connecting with people, bro. Like providing value and just connecting with people, having good, healthy relationships. I think that's more important than the deals you're doing and how much money you're making at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I got you on that. So where do you see the market going? I mean, we're in the beginning stages of 2026. What do you think is going to happen here within the remaining months of the year?
Bro, it's so interesting. I don't know. Like I don't know. I wish I had what's it called?
Crystal
Like
ball?
like a crystal ball to just, hey, Craig, this gonna happen. I don't know, man. I look at things, every day, and I see like some people. Like it's funny because like you see some agents, and no hate on agents, but like some of them are like, oh yeah, the market's heating up. The interest rates are going down. Buyers about to go crazy. And then you see some people like putting out crazy statistics where it's like crazy amount of sellers and low amount of buyers. And then you see like, I don't know, like I was looking at a statistic yesterday, for example. It was like in like 2008, like there's so many people like, oh, it's about to be a repeat of 2008, 2010. And like there was like a graph, a table of like foreclosures in like 2008. There was like 300,000 foreclosures in a single month or whatever. And now it's like 40,000. And I'm like, that's still kind of crazy, bro. Like 40,000 people going into foreclosure, even if it's not even like, 300,000, 40,000 is insane. And if you could just get a small grasp, let me just get a little small chunk of that pie, I'm good. But it's definitely interesting. I think the market's kind of in a weird situation as the rest of the world is, bro. You got like AI, you got like, I don't even know, bro. Like you got these interest rates, you got, trillions of debt, in the US, the Fed and whatnot. So one thing I did look into was like the Trump appointed a new Fed chair. So maybe there might be some changes there. Who knows? But I try to, I just try to stay focused on what we're doing. At the end of the day, that's one thing one reason I got into the real estate space whenever I stuck with it in the beginning, because I didn't know like if this was going to work or not. I stuck with it just for the sake of like, you could do this in any given market, bro. Like people are always
Yeah.
going to need places to live. Buyers are always going to be there. Maybe not as many buyers, but if you build the right connections and build those relationships, like I was just saying, bro, there's those certain buyers that are always buying. You know, you just got to make sure the numbers make sense and you're good. So I was never worried too much about what's going to happen in the market and how that's going to affect things, because you know, if you're doing solid and you're providing value to, you know, those homeowners and whatnot, I think there's always potential to get deals done.
Definitely. I was
100%.
Yeah.
reading this thing that it's like there's a big kind of thing that's preventing young people right now from being able to enter the real estate market is because there's so many boomers that are kind of just like not wanting to sell their home. Like they want to just die in the home that they grew up in because they're like proud of that asset, and it might be the only asset they actually have. So if they sell it, then where are they going to go? Because the home prices are so insanely high. It's like even if they get a lot of equity to then go move into a smaller home, well, the value in their mind of that smaller home for that price versus how much they paid for their home, like trading that equity for a smaller piece of property that then they just realize, well, like what? Now we're just going to go die in this home. So it's like a kind of a weird thing right now where there's not a lot of movement on the generation who bought their homes in the 60s, 70s, 80s, willing to kind of give up that home, that piece of property, where in the 90s it was kind of a thing. It's like, yeah, I will pass down the home to their kids, or you know, get to a point where they want to change in life or become snowbirds or do those things. All they had dreams. Sell the house. My grandparents sold their house, bought an RV, traveled the world for their retirement, right? There's right now it's like people are just a lot of the boomer generation is just kind of staying put.
Yeah, man, and that's what's kind of crazy to me too. It's like, you know, mention like a little bit on that. It's like I was looking at another statistic the other day where it was like the average age of a homeowner or a first time home buyer went from like 28, 30 within like the last couple of years, went up to like 40, you know, like
Yeah.
38, 40, 35. And I look at that and I'm just like, man, what could the case be? You know, and I like, you know, like you were just saying, you have these, you know, boomers who bought their house for $100,000 back in like the early 2000s or in the 90s, and they've just lived there for so long, and now this house is worth $1 million. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have somebody, you know, coming fresh out of college able to afford $1 million house, you know,
Yep.
or
Yep.
whatever, you know, like even if you come out of college and you work for a little bit, your salary, you know, the average salary, say, isn't going to be, you know, six figures, multiple six figures to be able to afford this $1 million home, which is an entry level home,
Yeah.
you know?
And a lot of times because of the lack of inventory, it's all supply and demand and inventory. And you know, it was easier to get into it in 2008, 2009 because of the amount of foreclosures happening. You know, how many banks were failing, foreclosures were happening because people were not able to pay their mortgages because of the types of mortgages they signed. You had so much inventory. It seemed like it was the American dream was alive and well. But as soon as those houses got that, a lot of that inventory got bought up, it seems now it's corrected. We're, you know, close to 20 years later. And you have the people who didn't get foreclosed on and had good mortgage rates, not wanting to sell that house and not wanting to go have a change. And so that's causing the inventory now to be really, really low across the country. We saw a stat. It was that U-Haul reported the least amount of people moving since COVID. So like COVID,
Oh,
like
wow.
there was a lot of people moving before COVID. Sometimes there was a lot of people who were moving during COVID because a lot of people who maybe worked in the city now are working from home. So it made no sense to live in the city. They could go move to a warmer climate or move somewhere further away from where they worked. So you had a ton of people moving in that sense. But right now it's like a lot of people are just staying put because they maybe not have enough equity to move into something that they would consider an upgrade or what they want to be able to sell their house. And then you have so many people who are just content kind of staying with where they are, because if they did sell, then where would they go? They start renting or you know, may not be able to buy something else. So it's just an interesting time we're at with that. And then on top of the economy of, like you talked about, wages, the wage to price, especially when it comes to real estate, like it's not like for the last 10 years the average income has raised to the point to match the average home price.
Yeah.
And you have so many people with lots of student student loan debt, not being able to even get entry-level jobs that can absolutely ever afford anything other than to live paycheck to paycheck. So it's a really interesting time. And but it also brings opportunity. The fact that the economy is where it's at probably is why that foreclosure number is a little bit higher right now, and potentially could keep going higher, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be any reprieve to anything like this. At least during COVID, you had a lot of people getting like $1,200, $2,000 checks, disposable income they could put towards a down payment on a house. You also had a lot of people being, if you are a business owner, access to a lot of like PPP funding and access to small business loans with basically really low interest rates and no real they pretty much, as long as you could sign a paper, they would give you a small business loan with a really low payment. So access to all that capital now seems to be gone for a lot of people. So it's a really, like you said, a really interesting time we're in. We have a question here that says, do you buy from other wholesalers?
Yeah, it just depends what market it's in, you know. We're in St. Louis, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Florida, and Tampa, Florida right now. And we'll do a little bit in Dallas, but Dallas and Austin, Texas for sure, and Houston. So, yeah, I mean, if it's in those areas, we'll definitely consider it. And I mean, even anywhere else too. It just depends, but that's kind of where we work in specifically. So that might be a better market for us.
What made you choose kind of those markets? Is there something you look at that makes you choose kind of what market you buy in?
Kind of. And then honestly, like I was saying earlier, bro, just having relationships. I have relationships with certain individuals in all of these markets that it just kind of gives me the ability, like, oh, I have somebody that needs to go view a house, or, you know, I know somebody that, you know, knows somebody who has buyers or stuff like that. For example, like our Tampa market and Jacksonville, I have a buddy that lives in Jacksonville who was, you know, getting into business and whatnot. So I was like, hey, man, you know, what if, you know, we start marketing down there? Are you willing to walk properties for us and whatnot? I'll train you and everything. Yeah, I am. And then we kind of went that way. The Tampa market, my dispo guy, he lives down in Naples. He just moved over to Miami, but he lives in Naples. And, you know, he was doing deals down in Tampa. And I was like, well, we'll just start marketing in Tampa too, since you already have the buyers there. So we just kind of started working like that. And then the Texas as well, it was just really relationships. And then obviously it's like, I try to find those markets that, you know, have a lot of traction, right? You know, I always looked at it. It's like some people will be like, oh, it's too, you know, competitive or it's too populated, and they'll kind of stay away from it. But I just kind of stick to it, like jump into that, because that's where, you know, there's motion. So yeah.
So we're looking at, we asked a few people that question. It's either the relationships they have or just their backyard, a place where they know they have buyers. Sometimes it's really looking at the amount of just overall real estate transactions happening. If there's a lot of movement in that market, and you can probably find that data somewhere. But if you see an area of the country where there's a lot of real estate transactions happening in general, then it's probably a place where people are desiring to live. So it's going to be easy to dispo a house. And there's probably a lot of selling activity going on too. So that's another way I know people look at what market they want to operate in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we'll look at some like that and whatnot, but we've tried a lot of different markets, and it just, like, you know, just going back to the relationship, it's just so much easier when you have certain relationships already there. Not saying like, hey, you know, I mean, like we got a deal recently. It was over in Idaho, you know what I'm saying? And that's just like a random area that we haven't really worked in much. But it's not that hard to reach out to certain agents or certain people or connect with people to find somebody. But it's just kind of where we built up our marketing and whatnot over the years. So just kind of stick to that. Try not doing too many different markets either. At one point we were trying to do nationwide, and I think it just gets very sporadic. You know, you're like, oh, I'm talking to this person here, and then you're talking to this person over there, and you can't really build, like, for us at least. I know some people doing nationwide and they're doing crazy numbers, but just for us at least, we just try to kind of keep it specific and focused.
No doubt. Yeah, me and Drew have been doing it nationwide now, residential and commercial, for probably, you know, internal, just for close to a year. And we've noticed that, like, you're right. Like if you're not filtering out certain parameters, then you're going to end up with a bunch of shit that nobody can do anything with. Like anybody, you'll end up with a house that's in a population of 10 people in the entire town in the middle of North Dakota or something. So we've realized that we've trimmed down like when we're going nationwide, we trim it down. We make them answer a ton of questions to even get to us. That way we know we're not wasting our time. And this lead is like going to have a higher chance of closing and funding than some of the ones that we're trying to, kick out.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I mean, like right now, like I was mentioning earlier, one of our acquisition guys does like a nationwide kind of setup where, we get these deals that come in from cold calling, but sometimes they come in these markets where, I just look at it real quick and I'm like, man, if there isn't like 500,000 population, just move on from it, bro. Like, sure, you could take it and like novate it and do all this, but I'm just not trying to deal with that entire process. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible and, stay focused on kind of the idea of like, hey, if there's people here, there's most likely buyers. If there's very minimal people here, then it's probably going to be a lot harder to sell. And I think just for me, it's all about channeling that energy and focus towards like the high quality stuff. And honestly, like I try not to touch deals nowadays that are like under 20K, 25K assignment fees, They just not, I don't know, man. It's just not worth it at the end of the day. Like if I have to help somebody like that's in a sticky situation and they're like, yeah, here it is. And if the deal, like I know I could get the deal done, I'll do it. But in most cases, we try to like stay at least 20, 25K minimum where we can make a fee.
Yeah, hey man, on the commercial deal that we're doing, that's what we were projecting, right? 100 grand or something like that. But it's not every deal is going to be a home run. And I think I mentioned to you before, Sam, is you and I both know we're leaving money on the table on that property or those properties.
Yeah.
We know it. We just know that it's such a good deal discount wise, but all the things going on with it would take so much more of our effort to be able to do everything we would need to do to find a buyer to pay more. So, you found a great buyer who's ready to go. We're all making money on it. We're just going to go the path of least resistance just to get everybody to the closing table and everyone happy at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah, I same thing. Everybody was, like return on investment. Mine is return on time. Like how much time can I like least amount of time can I spend and make the most? So if I have to go through this whole process of like, listing this property and then walking a bunch of buyers through and blah blah blah, going through these crazy due diligence periods just to make a 10, 20K fee, I'm like, man, I don't know if that's worth it for me. But if I can spend my time on a deal that I know I have somewhere in my CRM. And I'm like, hey, if in the next 30 days, I can close this and make 20, 30, 40, 50K, it's kind of a different aspect on how much you're doing. If I work 5-6 hours and make a 20K fee compared to working 30 hours and making a 20K fee, it's just kind of it's just a mental shift, really. And in the beginning, don't get me wrong, I'll jump on anything, bro. My smallest deal I ever did was like $100. I was like, whatever,
Sometimes you gotta hit some singles just to build relationships and to get your skills sharpened. And we tell a lot of guys this. It's like, hey, listen, like if you're paying for marketing too, sometimes you have to just hit some singles to just pay off the marketing. Like, right, that deal may not be a ton of margin that gets you excited, but if you think about that can pay for the next 3 months of marketing costs, which you could, every deal you get from their point is such a greater margin, then it's worth it. And if you're just worried about how much money you're making and how much you're leaving on the table, then where's that threshold? You're just waiting for the home runs, and it can be tough. And so we always say that, especially if you're paying for leads, then like, hey, if you can make some profit on it, then work it as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think it's all like, where you're at in your like journey, where you are in your process of building out your, real estate business, right? In the beginning, obviously you have to, really like learn, bro, like going through those experiences. Like I just said, bro, like my smallest deal was $100, but it was like a learning experience, making that connection with somebody. And like Drew said here, those smaller deals, sometimes they pay the bills, they keep the lights on, right? But as you're going through that and you're learning and you're going through that entire process, I think eventually once you get consistent and you start to build out those systems, right, then you start to see where your numbers are at and where most of your time, if I put in, 80% of my time into this and I get a bigger return compared to putting it into this over here, and it's a smaller return. Well, obviously I'm gonna put my time into that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's just kind of how I look at things now. So
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It just
If you were to spend the same amount of time to close a $50,000 deal, and you're spending the same amount of time to close $100 deal, it's like, you know, night and day. Like, hey, I can't be spending the same amount of my energy to bring one deal to the table that's going to be, you know, that's worth it, and one that's not worth it at all. So I feel you on that, man. It's that common balance, but also, like you said, man, it's where you're at. It's where you're at. If you just started, you should be trying to scrape together everything. You know, if you're seasoned in the game, you know, you need to pick and choose which ones are more valuable to you, time wise and money wise.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's the one thing, like I was saying, it's like when you're getting started, bro, like you shouldn't look at it as like, oh, how much money am I going to make on this deal? It's like, what am I going to learn from this? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I do this specific deal that I've never done, or I've never dealt with somebody that's going through divorce, but I'm not making a crazy fee, well, I'm going to just do it so I can learn how this process works, you know? But then as you get better at it, then you can work deals. It's like, well, I want to make 10K because I know how much time it's going to take for me to do this, you know, or the effort or whatever the case may be. But as you're learning and you're going through those experiences, like I said, once you start building out and you get to a point where, you know, you're trying to put together a team, bro, doing $1,000 deal or $100 deal is not worth it when you have a team. You know, at the end of the day, it's just, what am I going to pay my acquisition manager? $50? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's not going to put food on his table, you know?
Sure.
So it just certain things in, like, you know, in your journey that you go through and the experiences. But yeah, honestly, every deal I've done, bro, even the small ones, the big ones, whatever, it is just all learning experiences.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapping up here. Drew, Sam, you got anything you want to leave? We had a small audience on today. Anything you want to leave off on? Any tips? Any advice?
Damn, I didn't realize we went 56 minutes that quick.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, man, that was awesome, bro. And I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, like I said, bro, you just got to stay consistent. You got to stay focused. It's like, don't jump all over the place. Figure something. If somebody's working with you guys at Lead House, which, you know, you guys are awesome, bro. We had great experiences with you guys before too, and I think just stick with it, bro. Like, if you stay focused on that one specific strategy and you learn your sales skills and communication, you know, build relationships. If you're working with a seller, don't look at a seller as like a seller. Look at him as the person I'm trying to build a relationship with. You know, that's something I learned from my buddy David Dodge. He's like, try to build friends with these people, you know, a friendship. And I think you'll get better traction there with the homeowners, and then the same thing with the buyers, and then just learn as much as you possibly can. And obviously, for people that are doing, you know, crazy deals and have crazy systems in place, would love to connect with anybody there. And you know, we could, I'm sure we could do some deals together. So yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, just stay focused and consistent, bro. That's it.
Hell yeah, it's awesome, man. Where can people find you at on your social? Do you have are you up on social media and everything?
I'm not too big into social media. It's just something I kind of I know I should be, but I'm just not. But if somebody want to hit me up for anything, you guys can text me. My number is 314-828-0007, or hit up Craig. Craig will connect you with me. No problem. Whatever the case may be.
Right on, right on. Well, I think about that wraps it up, Drew. What do you think?
Yes. I think we did it. I appreciate Sam jumping on. You guys got his number if you need anything, or reach out to us if you need to connect with Sam if you have any opportunities in any of those markets he works in, or had any questions for him. Like he said, he's always down to network and help build relationships. So it's really, really valuable there. But we will be back doing this again in 2 weeks. And appreciate everyone who jumped on and tuned in. And if you're seeing this after the fact, then if you are ever in need of leads, then we would love to talk to you and see if we can help you out. Just go to leadhouse365.com and book a call with us, and we can chat about it.
I appreciate you guys.
Other than that, signing off. Great to see everybody, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
All right. Happy Friday, guys.
Happy Friday, y'all.
See you guys.